global hacking cartel recently demanded a ransom worth $1 million from two major commercial banks after scaling their firewalls and gaining access to customer data, including account details of high net worth clients. Highly placed sources revealed that the attack came on the heels of warnings from government and industry cybersecurity experts about the impending attack. NTV has learned that the hackers were able to gain access to customers' personal data, including account details such as names, identity cards, bank statements, deposits, and credit history, amongst others. The commercial banks, which owe fiduciary duty not to disclose their clients' personal data, rejected to pay the ransom. They reverted to a backup secondary data center maintained by Raxio Data Center in Namave, sources revealed. The hackers relied on a phishing attack, which is the practice of sending fraudulent communications that appear to come from a reputable source. It is usually performed through email. The goal is to steal sensitive data like credit card and login information or to install malware on the victim's machine. A cybersecurity expert who spoke on condition of anonymity revealed that they suspect the LockBit gang. According to an article published by Wired, LockBit is a prolific gang of cybercriminals believed to be Russian-based, which was previously implicated in a similar attack targeting Ugandan banks in 2016. Typically, LockBit ransomware attacks slow down the victim's network, capturing passwords and locking the victim out, denying them access to their own system. To regain access, they must pay a ransom. However, even if access is regained, it cannot be ruled out that the hackers have backdoor access to the data system and can be able to hack in the future. Rather than pay the ransom and fund the activities of the hackers, financial institutions routinely back up data on cassette tape, so once the system is compromised, they can restore it. Cybercriminals target legacy security systems of banks and telecom firms in Uganda, amongst others, that are yet to be upgraded with ransomware that evades detection and circumvents firewalls. According to a 2019-2020 report published by Serianu Limited, a Pan-African cybersecurity firm, it revealed that cyber attacks in Uganda were on the rise and had led to a loss of about 11.4 billion shillings. Out of this colossal sum, only 51,890,000 shillings was recovered. Banks are the main targets of such attacks. However, telecom companies and aggregators are also in the sights of cyber criminals. In 2018, Central Police Station registered a case of unauthorized access and theft of money worth 2.6 billion shillings stolen from Bionic Limited Systems, which operates a cloud-based mobile payment system, while CID officers at Chibuli registered another case of unauthorized access and theft of money worth 802 million shillings filed by MTN Uganda. In 2019, DFCU Bank filed a case of unauthorized access and theft of 383 million shillings at CID officers Chibuli. Centenary Bank filed a case of unauthorized access and theft for 800 million shillings at CPS. And True African Systems, an online financial services hub, lost 116 million shillings as well and filed a case at CID officers Chibuli. More recently, in October 2022, Airtel was the target of a 7.6 billion shilling cyber heist after hackers took control of a betting site that was used by punters to place bets after crediting their accounts with Airtel money. The hackers completed transactions on 1,800 SIM cards in a heist that sleuths believe was enabled by insiders. During the year 2019, a number of cybercrimes were committed using pre-registered SIM cards to steal money from unsuspecting victims. In total, 519 fraudulently swapped, that is, duplicated to make two lines with the same number to work at the same time, pre-registered SIM cards were used to transfer and steal money from various banks and mobile money accounts. A directive by Uganda Communications Commission requires all SIM cards to be registered with national identity cards. However, unscrupulous telecom agents obtain biometric data from unsuspecting individuals multiple times to make multiple copies of their national identity card and subsequently register more than one SIM card in the names of unsuspecting individuals. These registered SIM cards are subsequently sold to criminals who use the numbers to defraud their victims. In mitigation, UCC requires telecom companies and banks to authenticate customer data with the National Identification and Registration Authority, NIRA. This is why, according to NIRA's 2022-2023 Ministerial Policy Statement, 26,601,948 records held by NIRA were accessed by government agencies as well as the private sector through the third-party interface in the financial year 2021-2022. In 2018-2019, the following companies accessed and used data from the National Register through the third-party interface. Airtel accessed 1,317,205 records, while MTN accessed 1,814,522 records.
For starters, that access is illegal from the word go. We have a Data Protection and Privacy Act and the regulations that regulate and guide on how such information should be accessed.
Telecoms request to access this data to verify and authenticate the identity of people transacting on their platforms and claim to only request for names and the national identification number placed on identity cards. However, they have no access to the biometric data. They are now seeking biometric data to complete the process of authentication.
The access of telecoms of the National Register for ID is very disastrous, worrying, because if telecoms that collect the names of people, their location in terms of where they live, if combined with the biometrics of the national ID, now that makes it very dangerous, because now someone can easily be profiled. And telecoms have had a history of misusing personal data. They've had a history of being hacked into.
Third parties sign an MOU with NIRA which contains the terms under which data is accessed and used. Access to the NIRA register is provided for in the Registration of Persons, Access and Use of Information Regulations 2015. However, it requires individual consent. Consent is defined in the Data Protection and Privacy Act as freely given and informed.
I think it's time for us to pay attention to these terms and conditions, because sometimes we are signing away our information without realizing it. Some of the things in the fine print include, I'm giving you consent to share my number with your marketing department or with a third party.
So it cannot be that you collect my data once and therefore have a limitless license, an unrestricted license to do with it as you please. Certainly there is a limit, and the data subjects must at all times, at every turn, be well informed and give full consent to the use of their data.
But in practice, there are concerns that data subjects can't withdraw their consent as they are denied access to services, and the law is unclear about when consent expires or whether consent granted once is blanket consent.
So data subjects can decide that they don't want their information with whoever has it, whether it's telecoms or not. But of course, that would mean that you have no phone number, because these days have a phone number, you have to fill in certain things. But that doesn't mean that because I have a phone number, I'm giving the telecom permission to use it however they want to use it. But yeah.
These concerns have implications for data protection and individuals' rights to privacy, especially considering the regular high-profile data breaches at government agencies, banks, and telecoms.
There are very high chances of misusing that personal data because they've done it before. We've seen them misuse that information during elections. Politicians have paid telecoms, and politicians have paid some elements in NIRA to use that information for campaigns. People have been hacked to death. People have been killed. How do they get that information? How sure are we it's not elements in there? So there is evidence that information is being misused.
Further, it's unclear who's held liable in the event of such breaches.
We hold the responsibles where the source of that breach. So when we receive complaints, can we investigate? And in investigating, we find out who is behind the breach. So if it's a person that's registered in our within our register, there's usually contact information of their data protection officer. So we start from there and start tracing where this breach happened, and we work with the police to trace this breach and then action is taken from there.
In the digital age, data is currency and holds an intrinsic value. As such, governments, banks, telecoms, technology firms such as Google and Facebook, which rely on algorithms to build a digital footprint, are incentivized to collect more personal data from customers, citizens, and clients. In certain circumstances, which the law describes vaguely as scenarios where access is required in regards to national security interests, which is narrowly defined, or in the public interest, and in the interest of public order, your national data can be accessed without your consent. What is the ambit of data accessibility based, for instance, on national security interests, and what test must be applied to establish a legitimate concern of this nature?
The idea is that the government is powerful and can probably do anything. You know, they say power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. So how we got this is by putting in the law parameters that limit the people that can do things, so that they don't do things simply because they can do them. There needs to be railguards, and certainly I'd be surprised if you had an interpretation that says that once they collect that data, they can use it as and play. I certainly would be very surprised if that is the interpretation. So I think this is an area that is ripe for legal challenge, and in the national interest, because I mean the judges, even the people, whoever is a data collector in one instance is a data subject in another. So this is one place of public interest that we all must look at it soberly and in a place of sober judgment, without politicking and all of this, to simply know that your data, even if you're collected now, can be abused in another instance. So the law is for all of us. Yes.
For advocates of data privacy, this prompts concern given that government agencies have typically not been held accountable for abuses, including violations of privacy, which has also led to the clampdown of civil liberties by those perceived as political rivals, human rights defenders, and journalists, among others. The case of Ugandan journalist Lawrence Chitata, who went into hiding after being assaulted on the account of police surveillance, is instructive. Chitata, whose data appears to have been breached to aid his arrest, recounted to the Committee for the Protection of Journalists how he was trailed by plainclothes security personnel on a motorcycle, who also hounded him even when he was at work. Given the deteriorating human rights regime and growing intolerance of political dissent, declining media freedom, and rising impunity, there are concerns that mass surveillance will severely curtail individual freedoms, including the right to privacy. For its part, NIRA is advocating for mass enrollment for the National Identity Card as part of digitizing the national identity infrastructure and to address pervasive identity fraud. Experts opine that data access is a double-edged sword. For the most recent instance, a backup data repository allowed commercial banks to fend off a ransomware attack by hackers. However, if this data is illegally accessed, it can be manipulated, as was the case with disgraced UK political consultancy firm Cambridge Analytica, implicated in manipulating the presidential elections in Kenya in 2013 and 2017. The outcomes can be dire, as was the case for Chris Msando, the IEBC ICT manager, who was strangled to death. Christopher Paulo Kayonga, NTV Panorama.